Is Chicago still a mob city?
My father worked for the city until he retired, and there's two things he told me that I just kept on noticing over and over again. The mob is big in transportation and construction, and the mob loves gambling. And some people argue that the mob is dead and they have no influence, but when the 2025 construction of a Bally's casino had to be halted because the mob owned all the dumpsters they were using, and a city worker who was the son of a powerful politician had a side job with an extortion racket robbery crew, you might start to see a pattern. For people familiar with the Italian mob, you'll know that not seeing them is not the same as them not existing. For some reason, not snitching is associated with street gangs. But omerta, the code of silence, is very much a product of the mafia. And also, you never see these guys associated with many shootings or burglaries because they usually target people that had business with them. It's like a gang member robbing a drug dealer because the dealer is less likely to testify in court about you stealing his product. And to be clear, the mob didn't infiltrate government. They were already a part of it and they just never left. You can't even get certain city jobs without a connection. But a great example of this is Perry Mandera. So, if you walk into any DMV in Illinois, you'll see the name Alexi Janulius. He's the Secretary of State, and Perry is one of his biggest donors. And he was donating to Alexi long before he was the Secretary of State, probably just waiting for the day his donation would pay off. You see, Perry is a businessman. He runs a transportation company, go figure. But back in the 90s, he, along with Fred Pacente, a mob cop, opened a strip club on the north side. And yes, a mob cop is exactly what it sounds like, a police officer with mob ties. And this isn't just speculation. Before he died, Fred wrote an autobiography called Mob Cop, where he essentially explained how he got away with it. He said he controlled the money brought in by the club, and he'd give Perry $25,000 a week, bada bing. Those were his actual words. And one associate of Perry that also helped out with the club was Rick Rizzolo, who had previously ran another club in Las Vegas with Joey the Clown Lombardo, who was a very high-ranking member of the Chicago outfit that will later be sentenced to life at ADX for murder along with many other crimes. And keeping true to the mob not caring about money or politics, Perry and his associates have provided donations for Democrats like Illinois Congressman Chuy Garcia and current U.S. President Donald Trump. And although his exact motives are unclear, I find it pretty suspicious that a mob-connected transportation CEO made sure to donate money to the state secretary, whose job it is to authorize vehicle registration. Something that will be pretty crucial to a transportation company. And not to mention, one of those jobs you need a connection to get is working for the Department of Streets and Sanitation. If you want to drive a garbage truck or a snowplow with the City of Chicago salary, you need to get in with them. And a few years ago, a supervisor in the department made the news when he sent a racist text message to one of his employees, and in his message, he referred to himself as Iron Mike, which you couldn't possibly think of a more stereotypical mafia nickname. And again, I started noticing. As I said, my father worked for the city, and I've been to City Hall with him several times to handle business. And the level of bureaucracy is crazy, referring of course to the hierarchy of unelected officials that hold sway in this building. And my stepmother also worked in the same department, and when her boss retired, she described his retirement party as a mob retirement party. This is a department with an over $300 million budget. But let's keep going. In 2025, I came across the recent mugshots of two elderly men who were arrested for burglarizing the northwest suburban home of an unnamed Chicago restaurant mogul, Paul Karolik and Louis Capuzzi Jr., and a man named Casey Saflarski was also there. Casey is known as the Video Poker King, which might have a connection to the fact that the restaurant owner was pulling in millions of dollars each year through video gambling, something that Saflarski probably wanted in on, or was already in on, although the victim's lawyer claimed the burglary had nothing to do with gambling. But that reminds me of how the mob in Chicago was installing their own gambling machines in bars around the city in exchange for their cut of the profit long before that was legal. So Louis is the son of Louis Capuzzi Sr., who was a state legislator associated with a group of mob-connected politicians known as the West Side Bloc. And this wasn't Louis' first burglary case, because back in 2012, he was also arrested for being part of a burglary ring while working for the Illinois Department of Transportation, because it's always transportation. Saflarski was also previously indicted in 2009 for being part of an organized gambling ring. And Paul is identified as a member of the LK Street Crew faction of the mob's Grand Avenue outfit, which Louis was also identified as a member of, only after one of their associates tried to have a witness killed in another home invasion burglary case. These are all guys that have been accused of similar crimes since at least 2009, and judging by their age, it's easy to assume that they've been doing it for much longer. Paul was being caught with silencers and committing other burglaries since 1998 as part of the same gang. Even in their 60s, these men were working as enforcers, and instead of engaging in petty street beef, they were extorting millionaires. These are the people wealthy business owners in Chicago worry about, not gang members, because a gang member wouldn't know a CEO from a lawyer. But these guys were the ones that would watch a CEO's entire commute from his house in the suburbs to his office downtown, and they might have even seen him with a woman his wife didn't know about. And as I said, Louis's father was a known mob associate and politician. He served in the Illinois House of Representatives for over 20 years, and this group he was a part of, the West Side Bloc, was part of a political machine created by former Mayor Richard J. Daley. And one of the main things they did was oppose anti-crime bills. And this group was bipartisan, consisting of both Republicans and Democrats working together to get away with crime. If you ask me, of all the schemes in the city, the biggest trick the mob ever pulled was making outsiders believe Chicago was a true Democrat city and that Illinois was a true Democrat state, because the mob knows no party affiliation. While the Democrat congressman and Secretary of State take donations from the mob, just one quick look at the Republicans in the Illinois House of Representatives shows a very similar picture. Bradley Stevens is a Republican member of the House in Illinois, as well as the current village president of Rosemont, Illinois, a northwest suburb of Chicago. And in true autocratic fashion, he was appointed as the village president, or mayor, to succeed his father, who died in office. His father, Donald Stevens, was pursued by the FBI several times in attempts to send him to prison due to his obvious mob ties, but he always beat the case. His family has an iron grip on this suburb, and I don't just mean that they've controlled it for a long time. Rosemont has only had 2 mayors, Donald and his son Bradley. When Donald passed, he was one of the longest serving mayors in U.S. history, 51 years. And here's the legendary mayor joking about Rosemont being a mob town and breaking the law while in office.
Now, we had our police department and we had our red squad car, so now we had to get rid of these bad places because we didn't want to be known as a mobbed up town. So I called my volunteer police officers to my house, and only I knew where we were going. We took one of these places on River Road, and we knocked the door down. Now today, you couldn't do that. I'm glad the statute of limitations is run. And again, I can tell you these things today. I had a gun and I shot a couple holes in the trunk of his car. One of my volunteers said, Mayor, should we go after him? I said, no, I don't think so. Let him just explain to his wife the bullet holes.
Now this is a true Chicagoland politician. His son Bradley is also one of the highest paid mayors in the country, despite the fact that Rosemont has less than 10,000 people in it.
He's one of the highest paid mayors in the country. Brad Stevens of Rosemont earns $260,000.
Do you plan on resigning as mayor?
No, not at all.
Stevens earns $260,000 a year for running Rosemont. Population, 4,200.
Now show me.
If you guys know about Rosemont, Rosemont is a suburb of Chicago that's actually close to the airport, and there's a lot of hotels, a lot of restaurants, a lot of malls and stuff like that that's in that area. It's kind of like a tourist area that's technically in the suburbs, but like I said, it's close to the airport, so when people fly into the city, you know, they have all of the tourist attractions right there for them to check out. And it's separate from Chicago, so it's not as dangerous. It's a north suburb. But yeah, man, it's a lot of events. It's a lot of events and different attractions and stuff like that they do in Rosemont. But man, I did not know about their mayor.
Show me the difference between Illinois Republicans and Illinois Democrats, because with power and influence in this state, there's always a well-dressed man at the top that you'll have to answer to. If you ever wonder why I don't trust politicians, look no further than my home. But at least it shattered the illusion of politics early in my life, so I didn't have to grow up arguing with people over politics. If you want to build in Chicago, get a high-paying city job, or if you're an aspiring politician, always remember that the day will come where you have to meet your real boss. And I'm not talking about the mayor. In southern Illinois, you'll hear people saying that they wish Chicago was separate from the state because the city is so dominant that they feel underrepresented. But when Republican State Representative Brad Halbrook proposed to separate Chicago from Illinois to give the South more of a voice, no one in the House that spans the whole state, north to south, will co-sponsor the bill. which is surprising because that means that no Republican representative in the state agrees with their population. For reference, this is how the state of Illinois looks on a political map, with Republicans holding 40 of its 118 seats. But here in Illinois, they're all the same. Red or blue, green is the only color that matters. Something that Al Capone understood very well when he came in from Brooklyn to set up shop. And it's crazy how unnoticed the mob is actually gone, because most people my age, and definitely younger, have no idea of their existence. But that's all I got for now, and I thank you guys for watching as always, and I'll see you next time.
There you guys have it. Is Chicago still a mob city? Apparently it is in 2026. The mob rule Chicago forever? Chicago, Illinois in general, is one of the most corrupt states, places that's in this country. It's always some shit that's going on behind the scenes. So, if you live here, keep your head on swivel. Really, really work on your awareness to actually know what's actually going on. Not everything is what it seems, okay? But make sure that y'all like this video. Shout out to my boy Trap University for always making these insightful videos on the city. A lot of this info that's on the mob, I did not know this myself, so this is good to know. Make sure that y'all comment on this video if y'all know anything about the mob or Chicago or about the corrupt politicians who reside in this state or in the city. Make sure that you subscribe to the channel as well. Click the post notification bell. The views are going up, so you guys are paying attention. So I'm definitely going to keep on dropping more content. The name of the game is consistency, baby. So that's what we aiming for, all right? Appreciate y'all again. Till next time, stay safe out there, especially if you're in the city. Love, y'all. Swayze.